Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy. Notification. Discord. Now. Discord. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Learn more. Actions available.
See if anyone's going to filter in, and then we will continue with how to recognize burnout within yourself.
8:14 p.m. Status bar item.
8:14.
Swipe down with 3 fingers to reveal notif. Welcome to live chat. Remember to chat options
But
button.
my partner is going to be. We're going to be doing something tonight, so I thought I would just go ahead and go live now and let it be what it be. So here we are. I'm going to give it a minute. And burnout. For those of you who are watching on the rewatch, you can skip a couple of minutes or we can have a little talk here. And I'm going to challenge you today as I go through these few stages of recognizing burnout to, look within yourself and be honest with yourself. If you can separate yourself from your emotions and look at yourself clinically, that can help with distinguishing burnout or not. And hopefully by the end of today's video, you will be better at recognizing burnout for you and maybe some loved ones. But some of these symptoms really are just personable. So that means that you're not going to be able to really make those calls for others, but you could definitely make it for you. And that's the important part, right? Let's see here. Give me 1 second while we get set up. I'm feeling for one of my pillows. Oh, there it is. Come here, pillow. Come here, pillow. And so yeah, all right. Let's see if I have any comments.
Welcome to live chat. Chat options button. Creator tools. Chat op. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Learn more.
But that's okay.
Actions available.
If you're watching this on the rewatch, or if you're just finding this now, if you enjoy mental health topics and things of that nature, then feel free to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Just a little brief just a little 30-second spill of who I am. I am Blind Justice. I'm called that because, yes, I am blind and my middle name is Justice. So that's why I go by it. I will be taking breaks throughout my spiel in order to read the comments, which I'm turning up all the way so you can hear them too.
Chat options button. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Learn more. Actions available.
When someone sends a message, I may not see it immediately, but I'll stop in the spill every few seconds or every few minutes, and I'll go through and see if I'm missing any comments. So we are going to get started here momentarily, and we're going to go through some of the stages and what that might look like under different scenarios.
Driving lever. Hello button.
Hello, how are you doing today? Let me hear your name again.
Welcome to driving lever. Hello button.
Driving Libra? Driving Libra, that's what I heard. Hope you're having a great day. I'm going to be talking about
Discord now. Slid Ross. Stages of button.
Oh, Ross, how you doing? Yeah, we're talking about stages of, or not stages, but we're talking about how to recognize burnout within yourself, right? You oftentimes hear, how do I give self-care? Or, oh, you should implement self-care. But how do you recognize within yourself when it's time to be implementing self-care, right? And so we're going to be going over that, and we're going to there's a few simple ways to recognize when self-care is needed.
Driving lever button.
Oh, driving lever. Cool. Glad to see you here, driving lever. I don't think I've seen you before, and so give me a second, and we will get started. I'm really excited. Again, my name is Blind Justice because I'm blind. And my middle name is Justice. All right, so, all right, let's see here. The first one is persistent mental fatigue. And what does it mean by persistent mental fatigue, right? So, for example, you're always feeling as though you're mentally exhausted. Like you're always at the wit's end. Maybe you've got a little bit of brain fog going on.
Driving lever. Okay, I am here for that. Button.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you're here for that. I'm here for you. If I can help you help yourself, then I'm a happy person. Last night, we went over how to do self-care, right? The 3 stages of self-care. So knowing how to do self-care is good, but knowing when you need to do self-care, it may be just as important, right? The live stream from yesterday is not up yet. I'm usually 2 days behind in putting my lives back up. So in a couple days, that one will be hitting the channel, and it's a great one. And so if you want to know the proper ways of implementing self-care and the 3 levels of self-care and the trifecta of self-care from a clinical perspective, you got to be back here for that whenever it goes live in 2 days. But that's not what we're talking about today. So I'm done with that spiel. So when it comes to how to recognize burnout, the one is consistent mental fatigue. What does that really mean? So you're going maybe thinking about a certain topic or a certain thing is causing you, it's hard for you to focus on a specific thing, right? Like, let's say you work as a social worker, right? Just as an example, like this is nobody in particular, so this is a fictitious person, and you work as a social worker at a nonprofit organization, or insert whatever the job is. The when you're at the job and you're working, maybe you find it hard to focus. Maybe you find it hard to keep your mind on the proper task at hand, where it wasn't hard to begin with, right? Like, you've been here for a while, and as time has gone on, it becomes hard to continue to focus on the material or the aspects of the job, and you constantly find your mind wandering to other things as a form of escape. If you come across that and you recognize that within yourself, there's probably some level of burnout starting in, or it has already started, and this is just a developing symptom of burnout. Excuse me. But it can take multiple forms when it comes to consistent mental fatigue. I gave one. Another one may be you work as a assistant of at an organization, nonprofit, whatever, and you are a desk, you're a desk reader, whatever the heck they call them. And so people come in, you greet them, you write the stuff down. Like, it's hard for you to be in the moment with the people you're interacting with, and instead you just find yourself wanting mentally to escape to fantasy realm, to some sort of daydream. It's hard for you to bring yourself back in, as long as that's not a symptom that was there from the beginning, because if so, then that could be a sign of something else, right? But if that is something that has come on, that's not a normal state of your mental functioning, right? Then that is a symptom of burnout and should be addressed. So, relatively speaking, it's all about not being there in the moment. And you just find yourself with doing escapism types of mental gymnastics to not be there. And basically, the lights are on and no one's home. You know what I mean?
August Sopine, I, button.
Hey, I'm glad that you're here.
Jaden, I have burnout right now, button.
Javen, you have burnout right now? Well, Javen, tell me in the chat, how do you recognize that you have burnout? I would love to know. Maybe it could help other people out in the chat if you let us know how you have burnout. My person?
Chat options, button. Jaden, I have burnout right now, button.
I'm sorry to hear that. Now, Javen, you would benefit greatly from my how to deliver proper self-care, which will be coming out in 2 days. It's the live I did yesterday, but it won't be available on the channel for 2 days. And it literally talks about the trifecta of self-care. And that, my friend, is one of the best treatments you can give yourself for burnout. So the second most obvious sign of burnout is emotional exhaustion. What do I mean by that? So mentally, you may be checking out and you're daydreaming, you're doing all these gymnastics in your head to not be there. Well, maybe emotionally, you stop giving a damn, right? You've gotten to the point to where you no longer have passion. You're no longer driven. You no longer get those feel goods, and there's a whole thing of, should you even have feel goods? Well, yes, to a degree, but also, anyways, that's another video topic for another day. So mental fatigue, emotional exhaustion. So you're no longer, your heart's not in it anymore. Let's say you work at an organization. I'm just going to give another random example. And if any of you have burnout out there, tell me down below how you help with your burnout, right? Maybe you could help others. People in chat are saying they have burnout, so this would be a great time to share your personal experiences. I want to cultivate a good environment where people can feel comfortable speaking about their problems because, there are good people that do care and would like to help. So the example I want to give is, let's say you work at a domestic violence advocacy group. You're not advocating for domestic violence. You're advocating for victims of domestic violence, right? All right, now we've clarified. But let's say, you get into the job position because you're passionate about making sure that people don't go through domestic violence situations, right? And that becomes, like every time you're in there with a client, you're going through the paperwork and you're doing this, doing that, going to court with them as an advocate, doing whatever position you have. This is all theoretical. None of this is a real person. Then, and you feel great because at the end of the day, you get a sense of purpose from what you're doing. You're getting a sense of enjoyment, right? You're getting a sense of fulfillment, and you care about the outcome for your client. Well, emotional burnout is you start going through the motions. Maybe you don't have the mental fatigue, but you have the emotional exhaustion where now you don't give a crap anymore whether or not they escape that situation. You don't care if they get that restraining order. Those things just stop mattering to you, and you're just going through the motions. That is emotional, like, irregularity. That's a sign of burnout. So you've got mental fatigue and you've got emotional, fatigue as well. And I'm talking primarily in job scenarios, but I'll give a couple more scenarios that are not job related because let's be honest, sometimes this can happen within a friendship. This can happen within, a household with family members, right? Like there's multiple different avenues where
Discord. Now. Chat options.
burnout
Button.
can occur.
Jaden. I have burnout right now. Button.
Oh, and Javen, I do hope you
YouTube.
find a way
Now.
through.
Emoji. Chat options. Button. Speech off.
Javen, I hope you find a way out of your burnout. So, if, like, for example, maybe you find it hard to care about someone in the household because you find some sort of constant conflict with them. So you get emotionally drained. And that is a sign of burnout. Emotional drain, mental fatigue, where it's hard, where you daydream and you try to get away. Another sign of burnout is, you start to feel a sense of dread when it comes to interacting with the person or people or being at a certain place, right? You start to get filled with negative emotions. This is not just a point of being indifferent to situations you probably shouldn't be indifferent to, but this is where you start to get an emotional dread to where the idea of continuing that job, the idea of continuing forward in that environment, that house setting, that location starts to be dreadful, and you start to develop a sense of anxiety. And like I said, dread, that's the best word I can describe it as, for doing that action or being at that place or being with that person. And at this point, it should start to become very clear, that burnout is absolutely happening. And sometimes what's hard is to realize when you have burnout. So and we're going to talk about that after I go through a couple more symptoms of burnout. But after we talk about like some common symptoms of burnout, I'm going to help you by giving you some techniques of how to recognize when burnout occurs. Because being in the moment when you have burnout is sometimes it's hard to see that from the perspective of being burnt out, right? So if you're burnt out, you may not realize that's what it is. Even after I'm telling you these common signs, I'm going to tell you how to recognize them easier after this. Let me give a couple more. So the next one is maybe you start having weight gain, right? Because you start, whenever you start having dread and all these emotional conflicts, and you start to be at the point where you don't care about what you're doing or who you're doing with or who you're helping, and you start to have that mental fatigue where you're just daydreaming when you're at work and your heart's not in it, your mind's not in it, and you have negative emotions that are connected with the activity, place, thing that you're doing, or people you're working with, well, then you may start trying to seek alternate forms um, of what's the word I'm looking for? Of compassion for yourself in a way that may not be the healthiest, right? For example, then maybe you start eating more. Maybe you stop doing the fun activities because you're focusing more on the dreadful things that take up a percentage of your life, and that starts to consume and negatively impact other parts of your life. So at this point, burnout has gotten to the level where it's not just affecting your thought processes and the way you feel about what you're doing, but it's affecting all other avenues of your life. The five main avenues of life is family, friendship, like your family, your friendship, um, your your work or slash coworkers, your household, meaning like these are the responsibilities of life, right? And then what's this one? There's family, friendship, coworkers, household, and your economic like income, like the stability of life. You know, if all five of these are healthy, then you're probably in a decent state, right? So these states start to get interrupted and negatively impacted by the burnout that persists elsewhere. So maybe you start complaining a lot to your friends and your family, and you're just always in a bad mood because you're thinking about that place, thing, event, or job, or whatever it is, and it's impacting alter or other parts of your existence. And this is whenever people start to have a realization of burnout, because it's at this level when it starts to become easy for people who are familiar with you to recognize, right? So this is the point whenever people are going to start telling you, "Hey, I think you may be a little bit burnout. I think you may be going through some burnout. I think you may be having some burnout tendencies, or it seems like you're really stressed out." And you know, these are the types of phrases you're going to hear once it gets to the level in which it is expressing itself throughout the other, you know, avenues within your life. I'm going to take a second and I'm going to check the comments because I've been yapping, and then we'll continue.
Speech on. Jaden. I have burnout right now. But chat options.
All
button.
right, Javen, you were been the
Speech
last
off.
one. Javen, I am sorry about to hear about that burnout. So what happens after you recognize your burnout? If someone tells you you have burnout, that's when you do the self-care techniques, which the video will be back up in 2 days because it was a live stream yesterday. But how can you be a better observer of yourself to recognize burnout? Right? Like the sooner you can recognize it, the sooner you can implement self-care techniques to mitigate the effect of burnout. So it becomes vitally important to recognize it sooner in order to mitigate the effects, you know, because they'll just exacerbate the longer and longer that it continues to build. It's like, you know, putting water in a pressure cooker, and then like as the pressure cooker heats up, the pressure in the cooker just gets more and more and more, you know, like higher and higher, and more, you know, vi- like vital within the pressure cooker. And you know, that's the same thing with burnout. Like it may not be noticeable at lower levels of burnout. Maybe you just find yourself daydreaming from time to time, or you just stop caring as much, you know, or you know, you just start dreading it a little bit, and you're like, ah, God, I have to go back on Monday. And you know, and so at that point, it's not affecting your other stages of life, just a little bit. Now, the way you can recognize that is by separating yourself from your thought, the observer, from the thoughts and the emotions. Now, this may seem like a bizarre concept for people who don't understand the principles of the observer. And so I'm going to kind of go over that, and then I'll tell you some methods of being able to implement it, right? And I promise you, like using the observer effect can be very beneficial for multiple avenues within your life. This is just one specific. I'm talking about burnout. So that's why I'm focusing primarily on that now. So the observer is you. So you're the one that's looking through your eyes, if you can see. I can't, or hearing through your ears, tasting the food, all these things, right? So you're the one that if you put food in your mouth and it tastes gross, you're like, ooh, I don't like that. Puh, 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 yucky. You were observing the flavor. I mean, observing, I guess is the wrong word, but the what I'm talking about is called the observer. You're processing it, and you decide, I don't like that, and I'm not going to eat that. Well, just like you said, I'm not going to eat that, and you spit the food out, you can also make those same types of observations and choices when it comes to recognizing mental patterns within your brain and your emotional states, right? Like, think about this. Think of it this way. I'm going to give you kind of a metaphor, and then I'll kind of break down some techniques, right? To try to explain it better. One more metaphor, and then I'm going to break down the techniques. So you, the observer, are the one standing in a field, and your emotions are the clouds that keep passing by. And your mental state is the river that's flowing next to you, and you can look down and you can see that the mental state, the river sometimes is dried up and there's very little water coming down. You can go, oh, like right now there's not much concentration going on, and then other times the river is just flooded and just whoosh, and you can observe that and you can go, oh, interesting, my brain is really active today and thinking about this and this because that's the direction the river's going, right? And that same thing with the clouds. Like, every cloud that comes by can be an emotional state. Oh, huh, interesting, I'm feeling joy right now as a cloud goes by that's joy. And it's like, huh, I wonder what's making me feel so happy right now. I wonder what's making me feel so sad. I wonder what's making me feel so angry. I wonder what's making me feel so like unengaged with my clients. I wonder why I keep daydreaming and I find it hard to concentrate on this specific thing that I've been doing for a while. I wonder why it is that I no longer care if the people I'm working with are crying or about their well being. I wonder why I always feel depressed whenever I go to this place or interact with this person. I wonder, see, do you see what I just did? I took it from a metaphorical state to asking those questions about situations that are systematic of burnout, right? So that's what it is. You have to be curious. And when you're in the moment, it can be very hard to do this. But if you can maybe set a reminder on your phone, that is a common tactic that's used these days, is put a reminder like 3 times during the day to do a 30-second check-in, right? This is a great way to see if there's burnout going on. Just say, okay, at 10 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock, I'm going to do a 30-second check-in. Put those reminders in on your phone. The reminder goes off. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Time to do my check-in. How am I feeling right now? How's my emotional state been today? Okay, I'm feeling a little bit of dread from being here. Okay, what about my mental cognitive ability? I'm like, well, I've been finding it hard to concentrate on my work and I've been daydreaming a lot. Interesting. Let me write that down and take note of that. Write it down, take note of it, and then see if there's a consistent pattern. Maybe you're just having an off day. It could be as simple as just having an off day, but if you find consistency over time where those same type of symptoms start showing up when you're doing a specific task, talk with a specific person, be at a specific place, then maybe that is your indicator that burnout is taking place, right? And by the time most people realize that they're going through burnout, it's whenever it's at a 10. At this point, the house is on fire and the burnout is obvious. Like, you can see the smoke 2 miles away in your emotional and mental exhaustion. And you're just looking at everything burning around you and you're just like, F it. And you just throw it down and walk away, right? The whole point of being able to recognize burnout earlier is to prevent yourself from getting to that point where you're literally burning everything to the ground. You're burning those bridges and you're like, I don't give a shit. Because that's the ultimate burnout, is when you don't give a shit anymore and you just say F it, and you can ruin opportunities, ruin people, and and in friendships, right? And so, would it not be better? I would argue, and you can disagree if you want, that it would be better to be able to recognize whenever you begin to develop that mental fatigue, that emotional drain, and that physical like exhaustion and the feeling of dread when it comes to that person, place, or thing. That's when you start to notice a pattern of those creeping in by doing like a check-in 3 times a day. When you start to notice those patterns, you can pick it up whenever your burnout's at like a 3 out of 10. But like I stated earlier, most people don't realize until one of those 5 stages within your life are in a crisis situation, right? That's usually whenever people become aware of burnout, is when it hits one of those crisis stages within those 5 sections of life. And once you hit that, your burnout's at like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, and you just don't have the emotional capability of dealing with the problem then at that point, or the mental your mental acuity is drained. So you're at that point, it's a crisis situation that could have been avoidable. As they say, and this is, I'm sure you've heard this before, especially if you're in the medical field or anything of that nature, they say prevention is the best medicine, right? So if you can find the itty bitty stages of burnout developing and nip them in the butt by by doing what I stated in yesterday's video, then you're going to be well off on your way of recognizing burnout and treating burnout. So another thing you can do to recognize burnout through the observational, being the observer, like I said, the first one was to set a timer 3 times a day and take a 30-second check-in. Check your mental, check your emotional, see if you're starting to develop bad habits to try to do any sort of avoidant behavior. If you are, then there's a good point. There's a good chance you, my friend, have the burnout. Another thing you can do that can help you is meditation. And I know that a lot of people hear the word meditation and they think foo, blah, blah, blah. Well, the point of meditation, and maybe I should do a whole video on this, so I'm just going to give a summary here, is to calm the boiling mind, right? When you have that emotional fatigue or that emotional like drain and that mental fatigue, take maybe like a couple of minutes, could be as little as 1 minute. And one of my favorite um one of my favorite meditation things, and it's easy to do, you can be in an office chair and do this, is to get your mind out of your brain. That's a bizarre concept, I know. And what I mean by that is become curious about your feet. How does my feet feel right now? Wiggle all your toes around. Can I feel all my toes? Yes. Are my feet warm? Is the shoes tight on my feet? Is there any pressure points on my feet that are more than other pressure points? Is any of my toes curled up? Do I need to cut my toenails? Like what's the angle of my ankle? All what you're doing is you're taking the idea of what you're doing that's causing the burnout, and instead of focusing on that and causing the fatigue and causing the burnout, you're basically giving your mind a mental reset by taking your thoughts from the thing causing the burnout, person, place, or thing, and you're giving your mind a moment of rest to kind of reboot, right? Because if you giving yourself a moment to reboot can be the difference between exacerbating the burnout and then being able to observe it from a clinical perspective where you are not affected within that moment of the burnout, right? So if you're like, for example, if you have mental fatigue and emotional drainage, whenever you're doing your check-in, you may not be able to recognize it because you have mental fatigue and emotional drainage, right? Maybe you don't have the capability of checking it right then. So like, if set your timer for 30 seconds, say, oh, timer's going off. Okay, let me spend 10 seconds, 20 seconds focusing on my feet. Oh, interesting. Okay, last 10 seconds. Okay, now that I feel a little more refreshed, How was I feeling before I did this? Oh, oh, now I don't feel as fatigued. So there was fatigue going on. Oh, I feel a little emotionally better. So I was emotionally drained. Boom. There you go. That's so it's what you just did was that you gave yourself a mental reset and you allowed yourself to observe outside of the emotion and outside of the mental fatigue. And you're basically observing and you're monitoring your own well being, right? Now I'm going to check the comments again, and then we'll be continuing once more to talk about this. And if any of you have experienced burnout, I would love if you would share in the comments down below what you did to help yourself during your emotional burnout. What kind of steps did you take to relieve that emotional burnout? Or did you just find yourself getting to the point where you just had to do complete avoidance, right? So here we go.
Speech on. Jaden, I have burnout right now. Button. Gus Sopine, Clyde I. But Jaden, Ross, I went to work and just worked nonstop. Button.
Ross, you went to work and just worked nonstop? Is that how you got through your burnout?
Chat options. Button.
That's interesting. Now, one thing that I find interesting is burnout is usually a symptom of like some sort of negative connotation that just doesn't get addressed, right? So, for example, you keep getting hurt by a person, place, or thing, and it's something you feel obligated to do. That can be, or you keep getting reprimanded or hurt emotionally, or or let down, or you keep getting talked down to. Like the whole process of burnout doesn't come out of thin air most of the time. There's either an emotional or a mental straining factor that seems to be a primary driving force behind burnout. So once you recognize the burnout, you need to recognize what is it about this that's causing the burnout. Is it my interactions with Dave from work, who always tells me like slide remarks that keeps, that are slightly disrespectful? Does it come from the clients that I work with and experiencing their trauma with them? Because if that's the case, then maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe that's not the right job for me. Does it come from the friendship I have with, Mark, the next door neighbor, who is insert thing here that's causing the thing? Does it come from, my mom, who keeps literally downloading all of her trauma onto me and telling me about all the horrible things in her life, and it just keeps causing me emotional pain, and now I have emotional like fatigue, right? So once you get to the point where you recognize that burnout is starting to express itself, it's time to pinpoint where within the person, place, or thing is that burnout coming from. And then you've got to start to implement strategies on fixing that burnout. And it all comes with being empathetic towards the person, place, or thing. Maybe it's a place you go to and you don't like it anymore because it always reminds you of you and a past lover, right? Well, then maybe you just don't go there anymore, or work through the trauma that still exists between you and that past lover through a therapeutic setting. Or maybe it's, like I said, let's say Billy at work keeps giving slide remarks that are disrespectful, and they've just been building up over time. So maybe I need to schedule a meeting with Billy and discuss how we are coworkers and we need to be communicating in a respectful manner, right? Say something like, "Hey, Billy, I understand that every morning you keep giving those slide remarks, but I have to be honest with you. And I'm going to be," and you have to say it in a way that's not accusatory. That's never going to help. You have to say, "Billy, I just need you to know that every time you say stuff like that, it really makes me feel bad about myself. Like, I don't understand why it's necessary for, those types of comments to occur within a work environment. Every morning when I come in, I hear that my dress shirt has wrinkles and I look like a joke. It's like, Billy, I understand that, you wear full suits and I wear button downs and khakis. And you do dress better than me. I admit that, Billy. You do. And I commend you for that, for your dressing ability. But I definitely feel like we need to be respectful because we're a team and we need to work as a team. Do you see how I just used language to not be aggressive, to not be accusatory, but to explain my perspective of the situation at hand? I didn't say, Billy, fuck you for saying that I dress like shit. Did I say that? No. You know why? Because Billy is now very, very on guard and he's not going to be open for communication. You have to explain it in a way so that the person can be empathetic with you by being vulnerable. I find that you being vulnerable and honest and like when it comes to your perspective, when it comes to dealing with someone who is causing some sort of tension in those types of environments that may lead to burnout, can be the best tool that you have to stopping that burnout, because people recognize it. There's something innate within everybody that can recognize when someone is being vulnerable. And whenever someone is truly being vulnerable, there's respect given, because to be vulnerable is to be strong. And it takes a lot of courage to truly be vulnerable. For in my example, Billy, I feel very insecure about my dress wear because of comments that I hear when I walk in every morning, and it's really starting to hurt me emotionally. And I really don't like feeling this way. You see what I said there? I never said, Billy, you. I said, Billy, I feel whenever I come in and I don't like feeling this way. I don't like feeling this way. I never said, Billy, you. Right? And so I expressed myself in a manner that is completely non-confrontational, in a manner that gets my point across directly, with the process of being completely vulnerable and true to how I'm feeling in a vulnerable state. So I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to listen to comments if there's any more. If you want to leave a comment, now's the time to do so. Because I'm going to be going through to see if there's any that I missed. I think I have like a 30-second delay, so I'm going to give it a minute from now, and then we're going to go through some comments. I appreciate you all being here. I'm going to take a second and say, if you could leave a thumbs up on this video, I'd appreciate it greatly, so the algorithm knows that it was liked. And if you enjoy this type of content, think about hitting that subscribe button. I can't make you do anything, so just think about it. All right, it's been close enough to a minute.
Speech off.
Oops, turn speech off.
Speech on. Ross. My escape. Button. Ross. For me, it was my ex-girlfriend. Ross. Yes, sir. Button. Ross. I went to work and just worked non-stop. But Ross. Yes, sir. Button.
Ross. Yes, sir. Oh, so that's your... Okay.
Ross. For me, it was my ex-girlfriend and her friends, but I went to work to not think about it, and I have my dream job, and now I'm with someone who is much better for me in life than my ex was and work was. Button.
Ooh, Ross, I love hearing those stories of beautiful success. Ross, you are the person of the hour. Look at you. You used your work as an escape route, and it empowered you and took you to the next level. You got to the point in which you were capable of leaving that relationship. You were are successful, not were. Excuse me, Ross, I'm sorry. And you were able to find a partner that fits you a lot better. I love it, Ross. I love that for you so much. It's to like that is the thing. Like, and you know what? That needs to be a video topic. Ross, you just helped me with a video topic: how to build grit. And what is grit and how to build it. Thank you, Ross. I'm going to dedicate that video to you.
Ross. My escape. Button. Chat options. Button.
Ross, you are the awesome person of the night. I appreciate you greatly for that. So I'm gonna write that down as another topic idea. But I do these 7 days a week, and for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So anyways, let's continue, right? So I'm going to give a brief, quick summary of what we've gone over so far. We went over the where burnout usually starts, and it's with mental fatigue and emotional drain. Those are two huge indicators, and those two usually end up leading to physical changes if the burnout is not addressed soon enough, which usually tends to be weight gain. And eventually, if still not addressed or recognized, will start to affect one of the 5 areas of life: family, friends. What was it? Family, friends. I know economics is on there. That's like income, house, and family, friends, economic, house, and crap. What is it? Crap. What is it? Crap. What is it? Family, friends, economic, house,
YouTube.
and
Now.
work.
YouTube.
Ha!
Created
I knew
tools.
I'd get
Button.
it.
Speech
And
off.
work. So, if it keeps building up and building up, it's going to start affecting one of those 5 stages of life. And that's whenever it becomes incredibly bad. And that's usually at the point where you're so burnout that you say F it and bad things can occur unless you can recognize the burnout. Like, and by the way, what you did, my man, is called grit. And that is a great video and another way of getting through it. But you have to have grit in order to use grit. And one thing I know is grit is not even across everybody. It is a skill that can be taught and it can be trained, but everyone's level of grit is different, right? Just like everyone has a different IQ, everyone has a different height, blah, 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 blah. Well, grit is one of those things that can be trained like a muscle. And I can tell, Ross, that you have a lot of grit because of the situation you were in and how you handled it. But getting back to this, we talked about, okay, doing check-ins 3 times a day to recognize and use 30-second check-ins, 10, 2, and 4, and using a meditation technique of getting your mind out of your brain and putting it in your feet, being curious about your feet, so that way you're getting your thoughts calm and you're turning down the boiling pot, so that when you check back in, you can say, okay, now that I'm done thinking about my feet, how's my mental acuity? How is my emotional state? Am I emotionally drained? Maybe. Let me find out now that I'm no longer in the state of being active in the moment. You've taken yourself out of the moment so that you can observe it from an outward perspective within yourself, right? And then we said, okay, now that you've recognized that you've got some building blocks leading to burnout, and by the way, I also said that prevention is the best medicine because it is. So we're trying to prevent you from having that massive 10 out of 10 burnout where one of your sections of life becomes unmanageable, and it usually leads to other sections of your life being damaged as well. So instead of having that happen early, recognizing it early, great. Now you have to, once you've recognized it, you have to ask yourself, okay, I feel this way. What is it about what I'm doing that makes me have, mental fatigue and emotional drain? If it's a work environment, if it's a person, if it's a partner, if it's a place, if it's a thing, whatever it is, you have to figure out what it is and allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself and or the other person in order to make sure that you lower the level of conflict that they're going to have. You don't want them to feel defensive. You don't want to feel defensive. You just want to be honest in a way that's not judgmental. And hopefully by doing so, you can relieve that negative interaction that leads to burnout, or that negative buildup of person, place, or thing or event that leads to burnout, right? But as Ross pointed out here, sometimes the person, place, or thing just has to be removed from your life, as Ross did. And sometimes that is the only option because we can't control anyone else but ourselves. And if the person who is causing that tension, that event to continue to occur, or whatever, chooses not to change their behavior, which is causing you this negative, like, buildup and burnout, then you have to be the person to choose to let them leave or you leave. And those are the only options at that point. There's nothing you can do or say to really make anyone do anything, right? Like, for example, you can't say, oh, this person would be so much better if they did this. Well, guess what? You can't make them do that. That's up to them. All you can do is sit back and try to understand their actions. You can be honest with them, talk with them, but that's all you can do. So that is the ultimate goal, is to prevent burnout from happening. And if you can't if you can't stop the symptoms, that are, or the events, places, person, or thing that's causing your burnout symptoms to occur, then you have to remove yourself from that. And that's what it comes down to with burnout. And so that's been my spiel on burnout. And thanks to Ross here, we're going to be talking about what is grit and how to build it. But that's going to be another video coming down the pipeline. And if you enjoyed this video on burnout, then you're definitely going to want to watch the video that comes out 2 days from now, the video that was recorded live yesterday, which was what is self-care and how to give it to you. And that one goes really in depth with the different types of self-care, because and it also talks about the social acceptance of the word versus what it actually means under a clinical lens, right? So I think that would be something that you might find interesting if you've made it to this far in the video. So why not give it a subscribe and come back tomorrow to learn a little bit more so that you can help yourself and help others. I'm going to go ahead and finish up by going through the comment section that remains. Again, I'm going to give it 1 minute. So if you want to leave some comments, I'm blind. I can't see you when you post them, but I go through with my screen reader. And if you want to leave some comments, now is the time. About 40 seconds from when you're watching this, I will be checking. There's a small delay, which is why I'm giving you that time now to go ahead and put your comments. I'm going to go through them and answer your questions, and then we will end the live stream for today. I appreciate you all being here, and I feel incredibly grateful that just one person watches my videos. It makes my day the best day that I've had, right? Every day where one person chooses to watch my videos is a day I can smile and be a happy man. So, all right, it's been about a minute. Let's go through comments. I gave you plenty of time. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Speech on. Message retract. Ross. Sir, I have to go, but I love your content and will be back. Button.
All right, Ross, I hope that you come back soon. I appreciate you.
Chat options. Ross. Sir, I. Message retracted. Button. Message retracted. Button. Message retracted. Button. Ross. My escape. Button.
Oh, okay, Ross. You do you, my man. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you for being here, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Let me go
9:01 p.m. Status button. 9:01 p.m. Finish. Button.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Ta-ta till next time.
Are you sure you want to stop? Cancel. End. Button.
End.